So let's break this down into two parts. We have part one, which is going to be someone who is standing still or their face is not moving very much. So this could be somebody like in an interview or someone sitting on a chair or couch. And then part two is going to be someone who is moving. So they're walking, they're running, where you're going to have to blur their face as they're moving. So if you have one scenario over the other, go check in the comments for the timestamps so you don't have to watch the whole tutorial. But with that, let's jump into part one of this tutorial. All right, so we just opened After Effects and you have imported your clip into a sequence and timeline, and this one is going to be the still face. So the face doesn't move very much as you scroll through the footage. So the first thing we're going to do is select our clip and hit Control or Command D to duplicate it. Double click on that top one to make sure it's selected, and we're going to come up and create a mask. So you're going to come over, click and hold, and come down and select the ellipse tool. And if you don't know what a mask is, I will also link my masking tutorial above, but we're going to create an ellipse mask around the face of our subject here. So then we can come over and we can double click and we can move the mask around. And if you need to scale it a little bit more, you can scale it. But then after that is good, we're going to come back into our composition, and nothing is going to look really different because we haven't done any effects, but we're actually going to come over to the effects over here, and you're going to search for mosaic, and you're going to come drag and drop that on the top clip here. And at first it's going to be wonky, but come over and actually delete, unselect all, delete the tritone and the fractal noise. And then all you're going to see is these horizontal and vertical blocks, and you're going to increase them to whatever you like. I'm going to put about 50 for me. And if you notice, that is going to blur it out. Now, if you don't want these really sharp colors here, you can deselect sharp colors and it's going to blur it out a little bit more, kind of meshing the colors between pixels or blocks. And pretty much, guys, that is how you can blur a face that is still, that doesn't really move too much. And if you need to, you can go through and keyframe the position of it to just kind of move it slightly as it goes. And if you don't know how to keyframe, I'll also link that tutorial above. But that is the simple still face blur tutorial. All right, so we're gonna learn part two here, which is when your subject is moving that you're trying to blur. So you have a mask and it's a blurred mask over someone's face, but they're moving, they're running, and you need to track it so that way it follows the person's face. And this can be used and is used in a lot of different applications, and you see it a lot in like music videos when you're filming and a car might drive by and their license plate might be blurred, and they use motion tracker to track that, and it takes all the tedious work out. So with that said, let's jump right in and figure this out. So we have our clip here in After Effects, and we're going to blur Topher, my good friend's face, and as you see, he runs here, he's moving, and we need to blur that face all the way through. So we could just do as we did in the first video and just draw a mask and then go frame by frame and move that mask. But it's tedious and there's such an easier way to do it. So select your clip, come down to the tracker window, and if you don't have that window down there, go to Window and click on Tracker. Come down and we're gonna go Track Motion. Now it's going to pop up the actual layer of the clip, and it's going to give you these two boxes with a point in the middle. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to take our box, or both boxes, sorry, and we're going to move it to a point on his face that has good contrast. So for instance, it would be probably his mouth or an eye. And you notice that there's good contrast between the actual eyeball and the skin, which is going to help After Effects actually track the motion of his face. So we're going to put the center of the point on a good contrasty point. So we'll do the eye. We're going to make this box kind of big, to be honest. And the reason for this is because the eye is actually going to be getting closer to us. So the size is going to be increasing a little bit. And so we can actually go back in and fix this later if it doesn't work, but do something along those lines. But if your subject is not actually moving closer or further away, you can keep the box relatively small. But once we have that, we're going to come down and right click, new, and do a new solid. And we're going to do a white solid. And depending on how big of a thing you are trying to blur, so for us, it's just a face. I'm just going to do 300 by 300 pixels because we don't need it to be the whole screen. We don't need it to be the whole size of the video. Make sure it's white, hit OK. And then you can take it and you can move it over the face here. Make sure you're at the very beginning of your video as well. And we can just turn that visibility off for right now. So come back, select our clip again, and we are going to do position for our track type. And if you want, you can also do rotation and scale if you so please. But for us, we're going to do position. So we already have our track point set and ready to go. We're just going to come down and hit this little analyze forward button. And what this is going to do is After Effects is going to go frame by frame for you, and it's going to attempt to track that eyeball or wherever you put your point. It's going to attempt to track that point as the subject is moving. All right, so once After Effects is done tracking your footage, you'll notice that it created what looks like a bunch of track points, and it created a bunch of keyframes under our footage in a tracker 1 under motion trackers. And it's going to have a few different points here, and it's going to be kind of confusing because you're not going to know what confidence, attach point, feature center really are. But this is why we created the white solid layer here. And now before we do anything, you'll notice that, and this might happen to you, that motion tracker isn't exactly perfect all the time. And so sometimes it can jump around. And so for instance here, my motion tracking was pretty good up until a point where it jumped right down here from the eye to his forehead. Bam. And so now you might be thinking, well, shoot, how do I fix this? Super easy. All we're going to do is go back to that jump point. So that is right here. We're going to come on in and we're actually going to move the boxes back to the eye here. And then, whoopsies, you're going to want to take the box and kind of manipulate where it's looking to track. And then all you're going to do is hit the analyze forward key, and it's going to reanalyze all those keyframes based off your new position here. So now you notice it's tracking very well after we kind of readjusted what we were trying to track. And then it's going to change those keyframes, and now we have a great track in After Effects. So if you do have a little mistake within After Effects, it's super easy to go back and just fix. So after we have that, we have already created our solid layer over here. And so what we're going to want to do is on our footage that we tracked, we're going to want to go to the beginning of the footage. We're going to want to go edit target, and you're going to want to select that solid white layer that you created. So for us, it was called white solid 2, and we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to hit apply, and then it's going to ask us apply what, and you can either go X, you can go Y only, or you can go what we did, which was the position X and Y. Hit OK. And what this has done is it has taken the feature center, the confidence, the attach point, and it has converted that data into position data that has now been applied to our white solid layer. So if you notice, the white solid layer has the same track points as our track points that we have created on Topher's face here. So now if we were to scroll through our footage, the white solid layer now tracks with his face. So now all we have to do is make this a mask that blurs, which is super easy to do. So let's come back to the beginning here, and I'm gonna zoom out here just so it's kind of easier to see. And we're going to actually lock our initial video here so we don't move it. We are going to turn the white solid into an adjustment layer by hitting right here, and that's going to make it disappear. And then now the visibility icon doesn't mean if it's visible or not, but what it does is it tells you if it's applying the effects on that adjustment layer or not. So we'll keep it on. Make sure the adjustment layer, white solid layer, is selected. And we can actually exit out of this. And we're going to come up here and click and hold down, go to the ellipse tool, and we're going to create a mask over his face here. So I'll do like right there. I'm not going to make it perfect, but that's up to you guys. So we've created a mask, and we're going to actually stopwatch the mask path here. And you can do the mask feather if you would like as well, but we're going to make sure we're at the beginning, and then we're going to have to go to the end of the video because the face gets closer to us, and so we're gonna have to adjust the size of that mask based on the distance that his face got closer. So as you notice, his face got a little closer, so we can click on our mask and we can actually make it a little bigger here. And I'm not too worried about what it looks like for right now. But now if we were to scroll through, you notice that our mask gets smaller as he gets further away. Bam. So good deal. So now we have a mask. So now all we have to do is come over into our effects and presets tab, look up if you'd rather have a nice subtle, you could do a blur and come down into a Gaussian blur and apply that to this, and then just bump up the blurriness and it'll blur his face out, and that will follow his face. And look at that. But if you'd rather have the traditional type of blurriness, or type of you know, when you see in videos, like especially like in detective videos when they don't want their face to be seen, it's almost like pixelated almost. And you're gonna come over to effects and presets and you're gonna look up mosaic, and you will put mosaic on here, and it's gonna look kind of funky at first, and pretty much you're just gonna change how many blocks you want. The more blocks you have, picture it like pixels. The more pixels you have, the better resolution. So if I were to bump this way up, his face is gonna start looking better, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of make it however you please, and then you can go sharp colors, or you can make it a little feathery. And then if you want, you can even apply the Gaussian blur back on here if you so please, to kind of give it a both effect there. And it's really all up to you on what you're gonna do, but this is how you blur someone's face when they move. It's as easy as that, guys. So I hope you guys learned something in this tutorial, and I hope you guys just don't take the effect and apply it, but you actually understand that motion tracker can be used, actually is used in so many applications. It is unreal. And just these basics right here are the basic foundation of using motion tracker in After Effects. And so I hope you take this and apply it to other videos. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Peace.